the importance of legal aid, it's a safety net. You know, a lot of people, really interesting for us this during this pandemic is that we've got to represent and help a lot of people that we otherwise never had to. These are many people, it's the first time they've ever been through the eviction process, and they would have never thought they needed an attorney before, and they're coming to us because there's nowhere else to turn. And so that's really a blessing for us to be in that spot to help people in their time of need. And if you don't need us, that's great. It's like doctors, right? If you don't want to go talk to an attorney just to talk to one, you usually go because you have a problem. But we want to be there for those that need us when they have that problem.
Well, welcome, John, and thank you for coming on for our Straight from Stark series. You are an attorney at Community Legal Aid, and you've been there how long?
I've been here going on my 15th year, Amy.
Wow, amazing. Thank you for your dedication. And I know our community knows you exist, but can you tell us briefly about Community Legal Aid?
Sure. So we've been a part of Stark County since 1952. We were the Stark County Legal Aid Society, and then we transitioned to Community Legal Aid in the year 2000. And we are a nonprofit law firm that serves low income and elderly with civil legal matters in our community.
So how are you different from the public defender's office?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the public defender deals with criminal cases where people have a right to have a court-appointed attorney. In a whole bunch of other cases, like the things we do, evictions and domestic violence protection orders, unemployment cases, consumer matters, all those things, there's no right to have an attorney. You can always pay for an attorney, but of course, a lot of people in those situations can't afford one. And so legal aid is there. We get funding from various sources, including the Community Foundation, to help us do the work we do to help those who can't afford counsel in those types of civil cases.
And do you serve a threshold, like 200% of the poverty level? Is that who you serve?
Yeah, it is. It's actually 125, but we can go up to 200 as long as there are exceptions like certain debts and obligations, which most people have exceptions. So we generally go up to 200%. And then we do have funding for people 60 and over without regard to income, but we generally try to stay around that 200% range.
And I want to say, if I'm remembering from back in my day of working with that number, it's like 45 or 46,000 for a family of four.
That sounds, yeah, that sounds about right.
That's low.
It's pretty low. Yeah.
And still
Yeah.
at 200% of the poverty level. So
Right.
federal benefits coming in, at 100%, which is even lower. So anyways,
Yeah.
Your offices are downtown across from ours, which is nice.
We are.
And you have how many people on staff there?
So we have 8 on staff. There are 5 attorneys there, including me, and then we have 3 paralegals.
Yeah, and you have quite a caseload. So how many clients do you serve a year?
Yeah, it depends. It varies year to year, but we've had last year we had about 4,000 requests for service. We serve 11 to 1,200 of those. The largest percentage of cases we do are either housing, which are evictions, or we do protection orders and divorces for victims of domestic violence. So those are the 2 largest areas. During COVID, we've had to expand to do some different things. So we've always done some unemployment cases, but now we're doing a lot of unemployment cases because people have struggled with obviously being unemployed and then struggled with the government system.
Right. So I think I read we lost 20 million jobs in March, gained about 10 million back, so still at a deficit with 10 million people out of jobs. But then also that the 1.5 million are going to be without unemployment benefits, and I imagine that will turn your world upside down if
Yeah,
Congress doesn't act.
it's real scary because there's a cumulative effect. A lot of our unemployment cases turn into eviction cases, and we've had an incredible spike in eviction cases, and it's been difficult. Luckily, there's been some rental assistance, but as you said, if Congress doesn't act, I think it's really going to get bad.
And speaking of eviction, my goodness, such a unique year, right? So the CDC put in the moratorium, and then after this year, that will probably turn your world upside down too.
Yeah, I was just meeting with some of our housing attorneys earlier today, and we were talking about that. And there's we're a little bit in panic mode because we've been stretched pretty thin as it is. But so we've been able to get some cases continued with the CDC moratorium, not all of them, but the ones that did get continued, they're due to be active the first week of January, and we're not quite sure how we're going to handle all those.
And for all of those that don't know, who received the benefit of not having to pay for rent at this time? Because it's not as open, I believe, as people think it is.
Yeah, it's not. It's really it's for those who experienced a loss of income in their household during this pandemic, haven't been able to pay rent, paid as much rent as they could, and would be homeless if evicted. And so there's a lot of ifs in there, and so some of those get vetted out through the court process, but the ones that truly meet those criteria have not really had their rent forgiven. They still owe the money. It's just that they can't be evicted until 2021. And of course, that's coming right around the corner.
Right. And is it correct to say to be homeless, like they don't have any kin that they can stay with? You know, they have to prove
Y-
that as
Well,
well, or no?
yeah, that is now some of our courts, it's not clear. And so we've certainly argued that the CDC idea is not to have people gathered around a bunch of other people. And so just because you could go couch surf with other family members is probably not the greatest thing to do during a pandemic. And
Yeah.
so we've argued that the CDC does apply to those folks. Some of the courts agree with that, some of the courts don't.
And for those that are under this moratorium are probably unemployed, will still owe this back rent come January without a job.
Yeah, so there has been some assistance that's come through like community action, and it's good and bad. You know that has had a shelf life, and so a lot of that is due to expire the end of the year too. And so I don't know if there'll be more assistance, but just because they're eligible doesn't mean the community action agencies, have the resources to get that money all out to those who need it. And so that's where attorneys really are helpful for tenants because it seems foolish to evict somebody when they could get the aid, the landlord could get the money. It's just a matter of needing to work through that system. And tenants on their own with short time frames and court hearings have a real hard time doing that. And so that's where it's been vital on us, although we feel sort of the weight of that responsibility too.
And I think I saw on your website or maybe in other materials that you do rely on volunteers.
Yeah, so one of our big goals is to involve pro bono attorneys. And so we have staff dedicated to that, to getting attorneys in the community through the Bar Association and other initiatives involved. And so, although I don't work in that capacity, we have attorneys that do that just help the pro bono attorneys to get them involved to do the cases that we don't have capacity to do.
Interesting. So are those retired attorneys or?
Some are, and some, the benefit that they get from us is that, of course, attorneys have to keep their license up and take continuing legal education. And we offer a lot of those courses free of charge through the year, so long as the attorneys take one case from us a year. And so it's it's a carrot and stick approach, that
Right.
they don't have to pay for the CLE if they take a case, and it helps everybody.
Yeah. So if you're an attorney out there and you need a little bit more work, give John a call.
Absolutely. We'd be glad to hear
How
from
can
you.
we find out more about Legal Aid, John?
So the best way is to go to our webpage, www.communitylegalaid.org. We have a lot of information on there, including how to volunteer, how to get help, and about our upcoming events. We're active on Facebook. We do a Facebook Live almost every Wednesday at 5 with different legal topics. So if you on Facebook, look at Community Legal Aid, and you should be able to find us. And um, join us for one of our Facebook Lives, or go online and join us for one of our online clinics. They're free, and we're glad to help.
Oh, well, thank you so much for dedicating your legal practice to this work.